Dr. Ruckman, in Genesis chapter 12, God tells Abram to get away from his family. His kindred will follow us out. I wanted you to give us how we should know when to separate from our family, friends, and from supported other brothers around the world.
All right. In the case of Abraham, the thing is real clear. And in 12:1, he gets direct speech, which is a big help. And the Lord comes in and tells him, "Get thee out of thy country, from thy kindred." Now, there's more to it than that. Come to Acts chapter 7, and he didn't tell you in Genesis everything that took place there. In Acts chapter 7, you get the rest of it. And Abraham has some definite advantages there when it comes to leadership. Because the Lord not only talks to him in that passage, but in Acts chapter 7, you learn the Lord not only talked to him, but the Lord appeared to him, which you don't find in the passage in Genesis. Acts chapter 7, Stephen preaching. Acts chapter 7, verse 2. And he said, "Men and brethren, fathers, hearken." Look at this. "The God of glory appeared to our father Abraham when he was in Mesopotamia, before he dwelt in Haran, and said, Get thee out of thy country and from thy kindred, and come to the land which I will show thee." So you can read about that in Genesis and get to Acts chapter 7, you find that not only did God speak to him, but God appeared to him. Now you got to admit that's getting the breaks. I mean, don't you know life would be simpler, so much simpler, if the Lord would just show up in your bedroom at night and say, "Now here's what I want you to do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. That'd be tremendous." And he doesn't do that anymore. And it makes you live by faith. And right when you first get saved and first start out for the Lord, he usually shows you much more than he does later. That's why charismatics are babies. These charismatics all have this big emotional experience. They get saved and they get all come times and signs, the healing in tongues and flip-flop, and they try to spend the rest of their life living off emotional manifestations. Love won't let you do it. I don't believe God speaks in an audible voice, but I believe definitely the Lord speaks to people. He's spoken to me a number of times. And I remember what he said, too. And it wasn't like somebody coming to your ear and talking to your ear, but very definitely it was him. But I must confess, there was more of that going on in the 1 week during which I got saved than there was any time since. Now, after you get saved, the Lord expects you to grow up and live by faith. And if you want to find that thing demonstrated, you find that thing in the book of Exodus. Those little Jews are out there and they get those plagues, they get those 10 plagues before their eyes. Every time they turn around, God is doing something. And then the sea parts, they tear through the sea. And every time they turn around, God has manifested himself. And boy, they get across that Red Sea, and then for 3 days, nothing happens. They run out of water. They start griping and complaining. And the Lord gives them some water, but he doesn't do it miraculously. He comes to a place with 12 palm trees and 12 wells. He starts getting natural. They start complaining again, and then he, a couple of times, sends manna and quail, and then that's about it. Water out of the rock, that's 3 and 40 years. See? Slows down. So if God just come and tell you, "I want you to do this," it'd be just fine, but he doesn't. Now the question is, how do you know about this kinfolk thing? All right, come to Luke chapter 12 on one hand, Luke chapter 12, on the other hand, Luke chapter 14. And the first thing you have to get about the kinfolk is, no matter what God tells you to do or doesn't tell you to do, he has to come before all the kinfolk. And it's very difficult for some people. Some people I've never had a great deal of trouble putting God ahead of anybody in my family. The hardest tumble I've had is with my kids. I've been in situations where I felt the situation so serious that I'd have to give up my children to get an answer to prayer. And I have been on the floor in prayer and taken a knife and laid it in the pictures of my little boys and girls and told the Lord he could have any one of them in order to get the prayer answered. And the Lord didn't call my hand, but he could have. He could have. They were given. But some people, some people have a terrible time with that kind of thing. Southerners have more trouble with it than Northerners do. Most Northern families aren't too close. And some city stuff up north, sometimes you don't even know who lives next door to you.
Yeah.
And you don't keep track of all the kinfolk like you do down south. If you have a close family up north, you don't know what a close family is. You've been down south, some small southern town. Won't have a church split down there, man. It's something. Everybody is kin to everybody in town, man. And they've known each other for years, both sides. And because of that, Southerners down there in church messes always have these church splits where the families all line up and all vote the same way and go out and get all their friends and vote the same way. Have these big old family messes. And the average Southerner doesn't have the right concept of the Bible. The Bible is more important than your family.
Amen. That's right.
Now, some of you didn't say amen then. You didn't say it because you don't believe it.
That's right, brother.
Well, you don't believe it as you're not a very good Christian. If you were a good Christian, you'd know that the only reason you got your family is because of this book. And whether you believe it or not, it's immaterial to me. I don't care if you believe it or not. The people in America who enjoy the benefits of all our high standard of living or enjoy the standard of living of people who believe this book.
Amen.
And the reason why we got the standard of living we have is because a bunch of folks believe this book.
Right.
And if you don't know that, it's because you haven't been around.
That's true.
The thing for you to do is go to India for 10 years, and then live 10 years in Mexico, and 10 years in Spain, and then come back, get some sense in your head. Where this book goes, then everything goes with it.
Right.
You know, I was over in Vienna one time, and I must confess, that's a terrible confession for a Bible teacher to make, but I don't believe I really began to teach the Bible, really put myself into it, heart, soul, lock, stock, and barrel, hook, line, and sinker, till about 6 years ago. That's pretty rough, been teaching in school 22 years. In the last 6 years, you got warmed up. And the reason why is I don't like to teach. My idea of a teacher is a fellow who tries to tell you how to run when he's lame. And in coming up, I've had to sit in the school desk for so long, I just despise teachers. How would you like to be 44 years old and realize that half your life had been sitting at a desk? When I was 44, half my life had been spent sitting at a desk. 22 years out of 44. And of all those teachers in high school, junior high school, college, seminary, Army Athletic Command School, seminary, officer candidate school, all those teachers through 22 years of formal education, I couldn't tell you more than 3 I had any respect for in those years. And when the Lord called me to teach, I didn't want to teach. I got out of it as long as I could, I'll guarantee you, and it cost me something too. And I finally got into it, and when I got into it, I never really got thrown into it, because I didn't see anybody can teach. Anybody can teach. Of course, I know better now, not everybody can teach. I've been with guys who played semi-pro hockey and tried to get them to show me how to, stop at 20 miles an hour. I can go on skates. The problem is stopping. And he said, well, you do it kind of like this. And I try to get some help. The guy can't teach me. He says, well, you like this. Where do you put your weight? Well, kind of like this. Well, do you shift that? I try to get the guy to tell me what he's doing. He can't tell me what he's doing. He can skate, but he can't teach skating. Yeah. And what happened was I was over in Vienna. And I've been walking around there all day watching these people sit in the parks, well-dressed people, middle-aged people, just sitting there, much neater dressed than Americans, and sitting there just staring out into space, hours of time. Austria has the 3rd highest rate of suicide in the world. I think it's Japan and Denmark, Japan and Sweden, something like ahead of them, and then Austria. And I look at that place in Munich, Frankfurt, Stuttgart. I look over there and I thought to myself, isn't that something? These Germans, you can't tell them nothing. What are you going to tell a German? You're talking about music? A nation that produces Mozart and Haydn and Beethoven and Handel and Schubert, Wagner, you're talking about music? What are you talking about? We're talking about history, they got the greatest story. You're talking about science, Einstein. You're talking about political philosophy, Karl Marx. What are you talking about? We sent them a drill. I think we sent them a drill over there one time, a 16th-inch drill, a fine piece of craftsmanship, and they drilled a hole through it and sent it back to us. Through the drill, that kind of thing. Why? What are you going to tell that German about anything? But rockets, von Braun, you had to get him over here to help you get to the moon. And there's all that money and all that science and all that art and all that wisdom and all that intelligence, the high standard of living, and they're just going to hell like a bullet and don't know one thing about that book. Not one thing. Catholics, lost. Lutherans, lost. We got old farm people down in South Alabama and everything to the 6th grade that know more Bible than any president of any republic in Germany. When I saw that stuff, it began to eat on me. And the Lord would say to me, he'd say, well, what's wrong here, Pete? I'd try to avoid it. He'd say, well, what do they need here? What's the need? Well, the need is they don't know the book. If they knew the book, they wouldn't be in the mess they're in. But there's nobody to teach them the book. So, Lord, I called you to teach the book. I said, okay. I got with it. I'm with it now. I'm with it. Amen. But it took me some time to get it. All right, now, I said that because I have a low estimation of the book. I don't have a low estimation of the book. I know what the book is worth. This building here and the clothes you got in your back, the food you ate today, you got because of this book. Amen. And this book goes, your food and your clothing and your money and your friends, your mom and your daddy and your kids go.
That's right.
All right, Luke chapter 12, verse 51. Suppose ye I am come to give peace on earth? Yes, says everybody. I tell you, nay, no. Oh, somebody got it wrong. He said, do you think I come to send peace on earth? Nope, but rather division. For from henceforth there should be 5 in one house, divided, 3 against 2, 2 against 3. The father should be divided against the son against the father, the mother against the daughter against the mother-in-law against the daughter-in-law, and the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. Other passage says, and a man's foes should be they of his own house. All right, Luke 14:26. Luke 14:26. If any man come to me and hate not his father, I bet you'd ever heard Swindle talk about that one, did you? If any man come to me and hate not his father, you got something from Bill Gothard's youth tension conflict on that? You probably don't. If any man come to me and hate not his father, imagine Schuler out in California preaching that. Wouldn't that be a flip out? If any man come, they don't believe that book.
That's right.
If any man come to me and hate not his father and mother and wife and children and brethren, I didn't write the book. They used to glare at me. It won't do you any good. I'm used to being glared at. I thrive on it. I enjoy it. I said to somebody recently, they told me, they said, you ought to take this church and give it to so-and-so. I said, maybe he wouldn't like it. And they said, why not? I said, he get too much opposition. And they said, well, you're going to get opposition too. And I laughed, and I said, well, you don't know me very well. I'm an old dog, man. I have 100 people out there sitting down in front of me, hate me enough to kill me. They won't even keep me awake, man. I won't even take a baby aspirin. You know what bothers me is people treating me nice. That's what gets me. Just, I don't know how to respond, you know. You know, you're sure, it's sure it's a nice suit you got, Brother Ruckman. Yeah. You know, you sure got blessed in that message. Well, thank you. All right. Hate his own brethren, sisters, now underline it. Yea, and his own life also. See, don't capitalize the first part just because you don't like people. You have the same attitude toward yourself you have toward them. You see that? And his own life also, he cannot be my disciple. Now, isn't that something? The Bible says, honor your father and mother. But a man can't come to Christ and let hate his father and mother. You know what he's telling you there, right? Well, I'll show you what he's telling you there. I'll show it to you. Turn to Exodus. It means putting God first. And he putting him first so that when people look at how you respond, they'll think that you hate your own people by the way you're acting. You don't treat your mother and daddy right. You don't treat your wife and children right. because you put the Lord ahead of them. Exodus 32. Old Moses comes down, and he says in verse 26, come down from the mount. Moses stood in the gate of the camp and said, who is my Lord aside? Let him come unto me. All the sons of Levi gathered themselves together. And he said, thus saith the Lord God of Israel, put every man his sword by his side, going out from gate to gate through the camp, and slay every man his brother, and his companion, and his neighbor. Go kill your buddies and your family. And they went out there and they killed 3,000 men. What the Lord said about that a little bit later? Well, the end of Deuteronomy, this song of Moses, when Moses got through and gave these prophecies, look what the Lord said about Levi in that passage. Deuteronomy chapter, I'll make it, I said 32, I didn't 32, it's 33. Deuteronomy 33, verse 8. Deuteronomy 33, verse 8. And of Levi he said, let thy Thummim and thy Urim be with thy Holy One, whom thou didst prove at Massa, and with whom thou didst strive at the waters of Meribah, who said to his father and his mother, I have not seen him. Levi said to father and mother. Neither did he acknowledge his brethren, nor his own children. Killed his own kids. His daddy and mama had a part in that ritual dance back in Exodus 32 when Moses came down. He killed mom and daddy and his kids. For they have observed thy word. You see that? And they came down there, and Moses said to that bunch of Levi, said, go there, anybody who took part in that dance, kill them. And I don't care if it's your mother, father, your brother, your brethren, your companion, your neighbor, kill them. And they did it. And they did it. Now, you know the New Testament. The New Testament says the weapons of warfare are not carnal. The New Testament says, talking about hating your mother and father, and your brother and sister, your wife, your children. Obviously, it's not talking about getting a sword and killing them. But obviously it means when it comes to what God tells you to do, you're to observe His Word and do what He told you to do. And if it crosses mama or daddy, or your wife, your children, or your brothers, your sisters, you just have to cross them. So when it comes to those things that regard the leadership, you get the first principle right, and the first principle is you make up your mind that what God tells you to do and shows you to do, you are going to do it no matter what the kinfolk say, and then you do it no matter what the kinfolk say. Okay. You know, there's nothing worse, well, there's a lot of things worse, but it's pretty bad. For a Christian, after you've just been saved, you have to go back and spend Easter or Christmas with your family and they're not saved. Do you ever have to go back at Thanksgiving or Christmas and get with the people, you know, mom and daddy or uncles and aunts and the grand folks, and they're not saved? You all get together as one big happy family. And you know it doesn't work, because since you've been saved, the people that are saved are closer to you than your own people. And you go back there and sit down there talking about who they scored on last night or what this movie, did so-and-so play in this movie? He sure was good in this movie. I sure enjoyed it. You're sitting there, yeah, man, what a drag, man. And there's smoke all through that room, you know, and stuff, and you're sitting there trying to, that's a torture, man. That's a torture. Oh, something else. Nothing like a Bible to clear up a college education.